to highlight the issues that members raised in terms of that engagement with the department. Okay. There were quite a few issues that were raised for responses by the department. I'll just highlight these honourable members and then go to the recommendations, just for the sake of time and expediency. The issue raised was with regard to the upgrading of courts. A matter was raised in relation to the Limpopo High Court, the Tutuzela centres. With regard to staff morale within the department, the gender-based violence and femicide program, public awareness campaigns that are being run by the department. An issue was also raised in relation to the annual performance plan, especially with regard to why the APP had been tabled late and why targets had been reduced. Another matter was in relation to the impact of load shedding on the functioning of courts. The matters related to the Master's Office backlogs, an issue around the modernization and digitization of systems, and also with regard to NPA decisions to decline to prosecute, matters related to grey listing and state capture, and the capacity and resource challenges within justice and constitutional development. The issue related to whistleblowers, the delays in high-profile cases in the Northwest, a matter also related to the targets and outputs of the NPA, and finally, in relation to colonial and apartheid legislation. Those are largely the discussion points that engaged with the department on. Perhaps just in terms of the recommendations, members, the recommendations are as follows. 10 of them. That the department should ensure that it prioritizes the upgrading of courts and works hand in hand with DPWI to resolve any challenges. Further, that the department should continue with its work to ensure that the Limpopo High Court is fully functional and operational. The department should actively work towards increasing the number of Tutuzela care centres across all provinces to provide the necessary services to victims of gender-based violence. The expansion of the footprint of these services, as well as good marketing, will go a long way in assisting victims of GBV. The department should continue to educate the public on GBVF and ensure that all stakeholders are capable of implementing the GBVF goals effectively to improve access to justice for all victims and survivors. The department should ensure that it rolls out generators and solar panels to all court buildings and that it addresses the challenges of load shedding with the DPWI in all provinces so that court services are not interrupted and to prevent further backlogs. The department should focus on reducing the backlogs at the Master's Office and focus on rolling out the online services to all provinces as quickly and efficiently as possible. The modernization and digitization of all services should be prioritized to address backlogs. The NPA and SIU should continue to prioritize high-profile state capture cases and continue with its important work in addressing money laundering and terrorism. The implementation of the Pogdataro legislation should be prioritized. The department should prioritize the NPA amendment bill to ensure that the directorate has the necessary capacity and resources to focus on high-profile state capture investigations and prosecutions. The NPA should forward a written report within 30 days of adoption of this report to the committee on the progress of the high-profile cases dealt with by the Interministerial Task Team in the Northwest Province. The department should ensure that all colonial and apartheid legislation is repealed by the SALRC and the department to ensure our legislation to be reflective of our constitutional values. The department, NPA and SIU should focus its attention on the protection of whistleblowers and work collaboratively with other stakeholders to strengthen such protection. Our members, that is largely the report, including the discussion points as well as the recommendations by the committee. That being said, let me hand over to yourselves, honourable members, whether you have any additions you'd like to make and or comments on the report. Okay, if there are no comments and or additions, honourable members, if you would then want to move for the adoption of the report, Honourable Dodovo.
I move for the adoption of the report, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dodovo. Honourable Dlamini.
I second the mover, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Honourable Dlamini. Okay, are there any objections and or abstentions to the adoption of the report? Okay, or if there are none, then, honourable members, I think the report has been duly adopted. Thank you very much. It is now past 9:30, and I think the Department of Correctional Services has joined the platform. Gershwin, if you can confirm that.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. Yes, Chairperson, they are on the platform.
Okay, then let me then take this opportunity to welcome I think the Deputy Ministers on the platform, DM, the National Commissioner, and the entire team from Correctional Services that are on the platform to take us through the budget and APP of the department. Members would have received two presentations by the department, the one focusing largely on the budget and APP of the department, which the presentation this morning will largely focus on. There's a second presentation with regard to additional information. Members will note that there's quite a lot of detailed information in the additional information that was provided to the committee, which I think members can also, during their free time or even for future engagements, as well as for their general oversight, they can go through that information. I'm going to hand over to the Deputy Minister, perhaps to then take us through the budget and APP of the department. DM, Deputy Minister. Gershwin, I can't find the DM on the platform. Maybe the PLO, could you please give us an indication? Or even the Commissioner, National Commissioner? Am I audible, honourable members?
Chairperson, I'm making a follow-up.
You are, Chair.
Yes, Chair, you are audible.
And we want those people, Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the Select Committee. My name is Makoti Samuel Tubakale. I'm the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services. We have connected to the meeting, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, and as per directive from the committee.
Thank you very much, National Commissioner. Is the DM on the platform? Gershwin and Mfuzo. What's this colleague's name from the department?
Yes, Chair, it's Mfuzo. I will follow up now, Chair.
Please do so. We need the executive to be present in this meeting. I'm sorry about that. We had confirmation of attendance, so I'm not sure what the challenge is. And given that we started earlier dealing with other matters, I didn't necessarily look for the relevant stakeholders on the platform.
Okay, Chair, if I heard well, the National Commission is present in this platform.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Honourable. The National Commissioner is present.
Who are you
Perhaps
looking for in addition? The
the Deputy Minister. Yes.
Okay.
Would if members allow, we could perhaps, while Gershwin is together with the PLO trying to identify where the DM is, because members, you know, we have quite limited time today. If you allow that we get the National Commissioner to maybe take us through the interim.
Chairperson. Chair.
Okay.
I think we must
Okay,
carry on. I think we must carry on with the National Commissioner because he knows everything within all the centers. Well, we have, like, I have a lot of things to ask to the National Commissioner, not to the.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Samai. I think, okay, I just got an indication that they are following up with the DM. Honorable Samai suggested we continue. Honorable Dodo will also try to make that indication. I mean, given that, Honorable members, I suggest let's continue. Let me hand over then to the Deputy, to the National Commissioner, and then as the DM joins, we'll then get him also to make an input. Over to you, National Commissioner.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. We, as per your introduction, we have prepared a presentation on the annual performance plan and the budget. I'm going to request through you, Chairperson, that the Chief Deputy Commissioner responsible for strategic management starts the first part of the presentation. The second part that deals with the budget, I'm also going to request that we give an opportunity to the acting Chief Financial Officer to present that part. And after that, Honorable Chairperson, we will then be at the disposal of the Select Committee in terms of engagements to follow. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, National Commissioner. Please continue with the process. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members of the Select Committee. To flight the presentation per your guidance, Chairperson, which focuses on the performance information and the underlying budget for our annual performance plan for 2023-24. As we would be aware that this is the 4th annual performance plan in the 6th administration. So this would be the penultimate one. And therefore, we are, in terms of implementation, ensuring consistency in tracking our objectives and outcomes, and that will be dealt with as we deliver the presentation. Without delaying, I would, as we have indicated, the mandate and the legislative and policy directives of the DCS have not changed. And as such, I would not want to go through all that detail and delay the meeting. So I'll focus on from slide 6, which was one of the areas of interest expressed by the committee, which looks at our planned policy initiatives. And that specifically looks at our legislative program for the 2023-24 financial year. And I think the main and the pressing issue was related to the Constitutional Court judgment, which directed that the Department of Correctional Services amends the Correctional Services Act, specifically relating to sections 1, 30, 31, 88A, and 91 of the Act, which would talk to the relationship and the independence between DCS and JICS. In terms of where we are with the process, the necessary amendments have been made, and the bill has gone through cabinet who have recommended that we proceed to the National Assembly and subsequently to the National Council of Provinces in order for us to finalize these amendments within the extended period that was granted. If I may then proceed to slide 8, which
National Commissioner,
basically
my apologies for the interruption, because what we're seeing on the screen is not the relevant slide that you're referring to. But also, if you could put this presentation in presentation mode rather than the way I'm seeing it. I'm not sure if it's just myself or is everybody affected by that?
You are right, Chair. You're right. Nothing.
Thanks, Honorable Dodogo. Yes, if we could get the relevant slide of the presentation.
noted, Chairperson. We'll get
All right, great. I think we have it. Thanks.
the colleagues to amend the presentation format. If you Chairperson and members, are we able to see the slides as they're presented?
Yes, we can see it. Please continue. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing them on the platform again, honorable members. Yeah, it looks like they lost connectivity. Right.
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so the slide that is before us now indicates how the department's performance indicators in the annual performance plan that is before you contribute to the objectives of the National Development Plan as articulated in the medium-term strategic framework for 2019 or 2020 to 2025. There are the key 7 priorities of which we contribute directly and indirectly. In terms of priority 6, which talks to social cohesion and safe communities, we have 4 key performance indicators, which talk to the percentage of parolees and the percentage of probationers without violations of their conditions, the number of victims participating in restorative justice processes, and then we also have the cross-cutting indicator, which talks to the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on with regards to gender-based violence. The next priority that we contribute to is priority 2, which is economic transformation and job creation. There are 4 key performance indicators there, which is the number of economic opportunities facilitated for parolees and probationers, the percentage of youth employed within the department, the percentage of our compliance with regards to our employment equity plan, and the percentage of tenders above 30 million that are awarded to designated groups. Moving on to slide 9, where we look at our contribution to priority 3, which is that which relates to education, skills, and health. There are 4 key performance areas there which relate to the percentage of sentenced offenders with correctional sentence plans who have completed correctional programs, the percentage of offenders participating in long and short occupational skills programs, and those offenders who are participating in TVET college programs. In terms of contributing towards a capable, ethical, and developmental state, which are mainly performance indicators, which are in our administration program 1, look at the percentage of investigations completed for reported allegations, percentage of officials charged and found guilty for corrupt activities, and compliance with our employment equity plans. If I take you to slide 12, which talks about our theory of change. And I did indicate that in terms of how we are measuring our performance over the 5-year period, we obviously have the priorities that are measuring our outcomes over the medium to long term. And therefore, our performance indicators must be aligned and consistent in order for us to be able to measure that theory of change. So in terms of what we want to achieve over the 5-year period, which would be the second line there, which is we are looking at having improved safety and security of inmates, parolees, probationers, officials. In addition to that, we want to improve case management processes of inmates, increase access to needs-based rehabilitation programs, to improve moral fiber, to have successful reintegration of all those under the care of the department, to have a healthy incarcerated population, and a high-performing ethical organization. So in terms of, if we look at the very bottom, how we're going to do that, or how we're going to measure that, we measure the reduction of security breaches in correctional facilities, the increase in offenders approved for parole placement or correctional supervision. We measure the increase in offenders enrolled in development programs, the increase in inmates participating in well-being programs, increase in offenders under the system of community corrections, as well as those accessing primary healthcare services, and also the achievement of organizational targets, organizational performance targets, and also our change in terms of technology implementation. If we move to our external environment, which we considered in developing this plan, which influenced how we set our targets, which is slide 13. The key external factors would have been the economic overview, where we're saying that whilst there is economic growth that has been registered in the 2022 year, there is still areas of fiscal constraints and budget cuts that would have impacted on the resources allocated to us. In terms of crime statistics, there have been general increases. In terms of murders committed, rape cases, attempted murder, violence, gender-based violence issues, etc., which would also influence the inflow in terms of our population. Unemployment, whilst it decreased, it is still registered that in the age groups of 15 to 34, which is classified as youth, there is still stubbornly high unemployment amongst that group. Whilst COVID is no longer a global health emergency, it did impact on our operating environment over this the MTSF period. However, we are now managing that in terms of our health standard operating procedures, and we are cognizant of that in our operating environment. If we move to slide 14. In terms of security incidents, we have observed a general decrease in the overall security breaches within our environment since we have started executing on this 5-year strategic plan. We have, however, been impacted over the last year from the lockdown period coming forth with regards to an increase in the population levels of incarcerated and awaiting trial detainees. And that has also impacted on how we are targeting with regards to our overcrowding. And that has been an area that we have provided additional information on in the second slide, which the members will look at and would engage on at a later stage. Given the pressures that we are under, and also with a view towards creating an entrepreneurial state and ensuring that the department is able to fund its own activities as well as contribute to skills development of offenders, we are also emphasizing the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework of the department, which would ensure that we attain those objectives in the long run. With regards to rehabilitation, I'll move to slide 15. On rehabilitation, we are also focusing on increasing access to life skills, education, training, and personal well-being programs. with an emphasis on that going forward. In terms of driving our social reintegration initiatives, we continue to engage government departments, NGOs, faith-based organizations, and community-based organizations in terms of ensuring that we have partnerships that would enable us to interact more broadly with the societies in which we intend to reintegrate the offenders that we release from our facilities. And then in terms of care, we ensure that we are provisioning 24-hour access to primary healthcare services, as well as ensuring that we manage those who are in requirement of mental health care services between ourselves and the national and provincial departments of health. If we move to slide 16, the organizational influences or the approaches that we've taken is in terms of implementing cost reduction programs in order to manage the limited resources that are coming into environment, but also increasing the revenue that we generate internally. Just from a human capacity point of view, because we are human capacity intensive, we also have developed an integrated HR strategy, which focuses on human resource management, human resource development, integrated employee health and wellness, as well as employee relations, in order to improve the environment for the officials, as well as managing talent in ensuring that we recruit and retain the necessary skills, whilst also ensuring that there is gender mainstreaming and that we, on the overall, have safer conditions for the public, officials, and inmates within correctional facilities. Chairperson and members, the ensuing slides would go specifically to the performance indicators within the various programs, which I wouldn't want to go in detail, seeing that the presentation has been circulated. But just to indicate, if we move to slide if the colleagues could move the slide to 52. On that slide, we have just indicated that in terms of the environment in which we operate, we have looked at the various risks that could hamper the delivery of our strategic plan or of our annual performance plan. And on slide 52, we'll see that there are 13 strategic risks which are actively being monitored by the department. And we do have a risk management strategy and the risk management practitioners within the organization who are assisting us to ensure that the performance objectives of the organization are achieved. At this point, Chairperson and members, I'll hand over to the CFO or the acting CFO, that he can give us an indication of the budget allocation that will support our delivery of these key performance objectives that I have articulated. Acting CFO, if I could hand over to you, please.
Good morning. Thanks, CDC Katenga. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to honorable members, and greetings to the National Commissioner for Department of Correctional Services, colleagues on the platform from DCS and other colleagues that are in attendance in this particular meeting. Chair, members, and the National Commissioner, I will start with slide number 58, if ever they present, that can be flighted. Slide number 58 provide the expenditure through the MTF period, which in this particular case is expected to increase with an average of 2.3% from 26.5 billion in 2022-23 to 28 billion to the outer year, which is 2025-26 financial year. And it's also important to emphasize that this particular MTF period, the allocation to incarceration program account to 58.8% of the total vote allocation within the period of 3 years, which in terms of the monetary value is 48 billion. Also to add that the compensation of employee is the largest spending area, which accounted to 67.2% of the total vote for the allocation period. And to re-emphasize that the alignment between PESAL and HRB 22 is not yet finalized. It's a process that is underway that our human resource management is currently working on. There is a baseline increase from 2023-24 to 2025-26 financial year of 1.3 billion, which is the carry-through amount that is caused by COLA, cost of living adjustment of 3% over the 3-year MTF period, which in terms of figures or the budget is 426 million. Chairperson, honorable members, just to emphasize that the department has also within the MTF period allocated 266 million to machinery and equipment under the rehabilitation program, which in the main is to support the self-sustainability program. And the bulk of this particular allocation is for the recapitalization of the investment of the production workshop and agricultural farms, as I've indicated, to enhance the self-sufficiency program of the Department of Correctional Services. If you can move to slide number 60. Chair, honorable members, National Commissioner, colleagues, in terms of the 2022 E&E allocation is listed specifically and exclusively appropriate as the appropriation bill and may not be used for purposes other than those that are specified. That the upgrading of the rehabilitation and refurbishment of the correctional center and other facilities, there's an allocation of 451 million in the 2022-23 financial year, and to 420 million in the outer year, which is 2025-26. Funds that are earmarked for Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, it's 76.4 million for 23-24 financial year, and 83.5 million to 25-26 financial year. The COE within the MTF period, it's 17 billion 361 billion in 2023-24 financial year, and in the outer year is 18 billion in the 2025-26 financial year. Devolution of funds from public works, accommodation charges in 23-24 financial year 786 million. In the outer year 25-26 995 million. Leases 561 million, and outer year 137.51 million. Municipal services, it's 1.3 billion in 2023-24 financial year, and in the outer year, which is 25-26 financial, is 1.4 billion. I'll move to slide number 62. Thank you, Chair, honorable members, MC. In terms of slide number 62, it depicts the expenditure estimate per program. And you might realize that after is the expenditures per program, which, Chair, I'm not going to be able to go through because of this. They will summarize in terms of all these particular expenditure per program. Starting with administration, in terms of the MTF estimate 2023-24 financial year, it's 4.9 billion, and outer year is 5.2 billion with an average growth of 3.5%. Incarceration, which I've indicated in the previous slides, that they take the largest of the expenditure, which in the 2023-24 financial year is 15 billion. 2025-26 financial year, it's 16 billion, which is an average growth rate of 2.8% within the MTF period. Program rehabilitation 2023-24, 2.2 billion. 2025-26 is 2.4 billion, which is 0.9% of the average growth. Care is 2.4 billion in 2023-24 financial year. 25-26 is 2.6 billion, with a negative of 0.5% average growth. Social integration, 1.2 billion in the 2023-24 financial year. And in the 25-26 financial year, it's a growth of 1.258 with a negative of 0.1 minus 1.0%. And the total per programs in terms of the 2024-24 financial year, our budget is 26 billion. 25-26 outer year, then it will be 28,307, 241. So which is a percentage increase of 2.3% as I've indicated in the previous slide. Chair, I will move to slide, I wouldn't go through actual other slide in terms of program, but I'll move to slide number 86 if the presenter can move to that. Chair, the reason for this particular slide, we fully aware in terms of the challenges of our infrastructure within the department, but this particular slide is just to be able to share in terms of the expenditure or the allocation, specifically in terms of our investment. And just to also indicate that in the 2023-24 financial anti-rehabilitation renovations and refurbishment, we've got 203 million, and then in the outer year is 2025-26 financial 228. And in terms of the maintenance and repairs of our infrastructure, in 2023-24 financial year, allocation of 147 million, and the outer year is 154 million. So I thought it's important for me to also share that particular slide with the chair and the committee members. I'll pause there, Chair, and then thank you very much for the opportunity.
CFO, are you done?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'll pause there, and thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. All right. No, thank you very much, CFO. Just the National Commissioner, do you have anything else you want to add? The DM is also on the line, so we'll also get the DM to make an input before I hand over to members to engage with the presentation. All right. Now, DM, do you have anything to add now, or would you prefer to do it at a later stage?
Oh, thank you very much.
And welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I joined the meeting late. I had been made to understand the meeting would be starting at 10, so I got held up in a cabinet committee meeting. Hence, I'm able to join only after 10. Now, all I can say is that, which is elementary in any event, but I think it needs to be emphasized more again and again. The fact that the criminality that pervades South African society is responsible for the increase in the numbers of offenders in our centers. And it is not possible at all for us to be able to accommodate all of them, no matter how many correctional centers we might want to establish. And also added to that, the successes of the police, the prosecuting authorities, the courts in convicting, in getting the criminals convicted, also adds to the burden that we have. Hence, as a department, we want to get all the assistance that we need from Parliament as a whole, and from society for that matter, that the programs of rehabilitation, which are meant to lead to social reintegration of offenders that have either finished their terms of imprisonment or have successfully participated in our rehabilitation programs to the extent that we believe they are entitled to release on parole, is very critical to our management of the justice situation in the country and the criminal prevention strategies. Also important is the need for the judiciary to look at alternative ways of meting out punishment to offenders that have been found guilty, rather than see it as the main solution to incarcerate people who are not posing any danger of any kind to society. Once they have been convicted, we would believe that they should be brought under correction, community corrections through probation, for instance. People who are sentenced to serve their punishment outside of the walls of the centers, we look after them through community corrections. I think that is very important, so that we are able to turn these people into law-abiding citizens instead of having them put into unacceptable conditions, where even rehabilitation programs are difficult to implement. So any form of support, therefore, that in terms of us succeeding in these programs is very much welcome to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM, for that input, but also to the National Commissioner, Mr. CFO, and Mr. Katenga for that presentation to the committee. I'm going to open it up to committee members if they have any comments and or questions that they would want to pose to the department. I think I saw Bartlett raise the hand earlier, Honorable Bartlett. I don't know if you...
Chairperson, okay. I just raised my hand to apologize because I was in the flight. It seemed that it slipped my mind to put an apology to the chairperson. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Bartlett. Okay, in terms of engagements with the presentation, we have Honorable Maleka, Honorable Dlamini, Honorable Badenhorst, and Honorable Motsamai, currently in that order. I see Honorable Bartlett as well. All right, let me start with Honorable Maleka. Honorable Maleka.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greeting to the department, the DM, and members and officials. Chairperson, my question is, can the department give the committee an overview of the challenges that occurred within the department in relation to the Thabo Bester escape? What measures has the department taken in respect of its contract with G4S? And on slide 14, what are the underlying reasons for the lack of successful bail review application for remand detainees? And what is the department doing to address the challenges in relation to remand detainees? And the last one, Chairperson, on slide 70, is the department is facing a decrease in budget in program 3. How will the department manage this decrease in relation to the importance of rehabilitation programs for inmates? And what measures will be put in place to ensure that the inmates do not suffer? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maleka. Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to know, is there a system of letting victims know once an offender has been released on parole? This is because we have encountered many victims who would say that the last time they've seen an offender is when they got sentenced, but next thing, after a few years, they would see them roaming around in the same communities without have been informed. So that's number one. And then I would like to know as well, are there instances where inmates have been released because of overcrowding in prisons? And what is the monitoring system after that? And then, of course, with the Thabo Bester case, there's a lot that arised and a lot of questionable things. But above all, were the inmates that were sharing the prison with him, having access to the media, having access to cell phones, to try to vocalize what the department failed to hear from them, as it had been revealed that they tried to alert the department of what was happening. But also with the Thabo Bester situation, it was also the fact that he had escaped prison for a year and the community was not alerted that there's an escapee, and or rather the word should be that community members must look out for it. What are the communications or notices that are sent once an inmate has escaped to alert community members that there's an offender who's supposed to be serving a sentence but is roaming around the same community that we are in? Also, in reference to the state capture, there was an expose rather with the state capture with the relationship between Bosasa and correctional services. And above all, and the most notable was the labor exploitation of inmates, where they would make crafts such as furniture and etc. And that will be resold into the market for exuberant prices. Sorry, without the credit and proper remuneration towards those inmates. And what does the department have to say about that? Are they still into contracts with private companies who take the work done by inmates and then it's sold into the market for profit? And Chair, lastly, is that what is the monitoring process of repeated offenders keep getting parole? Is there a way to monitor that? And is the monitoring system working? Because if you are indeed rehabilitated, the assumption is that you have moved away from a lifestyle that you were living before. And so then what is the cause of someone then repeating the same offenses where the department has seen that this person has completed the process or the course of being rehabilitated? And I think just as a comment, I think it's also unfair. This will apply to even the deputy minister. I find it unfair that in this country, offenders would have the opportunity and access to education, where victims, after giving their testimony, are discarded and disregarded. And I don't know how we can address that. If you've been a victim of crime as well, you should also have access to education and educational systems, because you can't rehabilitate a society of offenders but keep the trauma of victims just as they are. Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's it on my side.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dlamini. Can I take Honorable Ndongeni, who sent a message that she's having network issues? Honorable Ndongeni.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, Chair, about the camera. Hey, I've got many problems today. My question, Chair, I'm not quite sure whether I'm audible now. Chair?
Yes, you are. Please continue, Honorable Ndongeni.
Okay, thanks. My question is, what vacancies exist in senior management? How far is the department in filling the Eastern Cape Regional Commissioner position? Why is the employment equity target for people with a disability is 0.83, which is below the required 2%? On slide 39, are there now sufficient social workers, psychologists, and general support for inmates, or are there still challenges for the department in the provision of these services to inmates? How would the department describe the mental health of employees working within DCS, particularly in light of overcrowding and other pressure, and what measures are being put in place to ensure that DCS officials are given the necessary support? Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndongeni. Honorable Badenhorst. Honorable Badenhorst.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself there. Thank you for the opportunity to engage. I just want to get to my questions, if I may. First of all, between 2019 and 2022, 143 inmates have escaped, and not one single employee has been dismissed for any of these escapes. Can you please answer me on that? Also, the facilities that are at 0% capacity, what is the situation there at the moment? What is being done? The rehabilitation programs mentioned are definitely not available at all the facilities. So what are their plans to help inmates at smaller facilities? I'd like to know, what is the situation with regards to the lack of social workers and psychiatrists? How is this shortage of skills mitigated, and how are you ensuring that these services are still available to all the inmates? Are they in fact available to the inmates? Do you have a service level agreement with the Department of Public Works? It seems that there's not one kitchen in this country that is properly working, and they take forever to fix it. Have they taken this up with their partners in cabinet? And what was the response? What is the effect of load shedding on prisons? How does the budget go into diesel? Does your generators get serviced by the Department of Public Works? They're sitting with almost 6 billion rand of irregular expenses, yet there's not one single official that's been fired for irregular, fruitless, or wasteful expenses. Can they please explain that? I'd also like to know, in conclusion, Chair, and thank you for your indulgence, we know there's 105 functional CPFs in the Western Cape. What has the Department of Correctional Services done to engage with those CPFs with regards to the parolees under those CPFs jurisdiction, so that the communities can assist the department when there's parole violations? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Badenhorst. Honorable Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just have two questions on slide 9 on Correctional Services Budget and APP. What is the time frame for introduction of Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, the JICS bill, and will the Constitutional Court extension on the bill, will this be met? And then on slide 31, Chair, the target for overcrowding has increased for this year. Can the department please give the committee an understanding of why this target has increased and what's the current status on overcrowding in correctional centers and the current bed space available for inmates? And my last point, Chair, on slide 48, how successful are the victim offender dialogues and what are the successes and challenges? I thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I hope I was audible enough, Chair.
Yes, you were. Thank you very much, Honorable Bartlett. Honorable Mthethwa. Honorable Mthethwa. Okay, okay, let me take Honorable Matsamai in the meantime. I will go back to Honorable Mthethwa. Honorable Matsamai.
Yes, Chair. Am I audible?
Okay. Yes, you are. Please. Sorry, Honorable Matsamai. Can I come back to you, Honorable Matsamai? Honorable Mthethwa.
Comrade, thanks, Chairperson. Mine, Chair, is in terms of the program 3 as well. Previous, since there was this decrease, previous was that over budgeting or is because of the treasury cut? And how are they going to mitigate the situation if there is so much cut in their program 3? The other one, Chair, I want to understand that the issue of the load shedding, even though the previous colleagues has asked, but mine is to understand the impact. What is the impact of this load shedding in terms of the, how deep it is the impact of the load shedding in terms of the correctional services? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mthethwa. Honorable Matsamai.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to ask DM on the issue of overcrowded of foreigners, inmate prisoners within the centers. They are overcrowded and they have finished their sentence. Instead to be released to go to Lindela or to go to their places where they belong. It's so difficult for the department to release them. The overcrowded is a violation of human rights. Now the center, all the centers, they are overcrowded. When you go to Sun City, Johannesburg prison, you will find that the cells that was made to occupy 20 inmates is occupying more than 40 to 50 people. When they are going to give the amnesty to the inmates, I want to also to ask, they're showing us how they work within the centers. I want to know after they release the parolees, because they have experience. Some of them, they know how to build. Some of them, they know how to do agriculture. Can they show us one place where the inmates outside the parolee, they are doing that for the community, or they are working? Because when the inmate, they go out within a week or within a month, they come back to prison with their friends robbing, or they have committed a very serious crime. What the inmates, after being taught something within the center, are doing outside. Let me come to a corruption. I hear that most of people, they are talking about whistleblowers. And there are people are being arrested for assisting Thabo Basta. In Motabi, there's a crime, a corruption within the center. Whistleblowers expose those corruption. After that, they were suspended, all of them, because they exposed the corruption. I want the National Commissioner to tell me. I went to his office and asked National Commissioner, when are you going to return these people back to work? Especially Denny Boy Revero Munaring, who was awarded by the court to return back to work on 2015. Up until now, he is not working. And department is not worried about that. Are they respecting the order of court or not? I wrote some email. Lastly, Chair, I want to know why the National Commissioner, when we want to go to see the corruption that is happening within the center, he is refusing to sign or to approve my emails if I send emails to him as a member of parliament. I want to know what makes it so difficult for him to approve our my emails. I thank you, Chair. Okay, Chairperson.
Are you done?
No, Chair. Lastly, there were two.
Please wrap up.
Yeah, there were two officials who were arrested next to us here in Acacia, in Goodwood Correctional Center. They were arrested by the Hawks. How can the Hawks arrest these people? Because they are official within their centers. Who can arrest these people with their dagga and drugs? And if these people, they are arrested, don't you think that if the management within the center, they can arrest somebody, this thing is going to make the person who arrests these people to be suspended? Why the Hawks come inside and arrest instead them to arrest the officials who are corrupt? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Matumai. Honorable Tito.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Most of the questions that I wanted to pose have been extensively canvassed and asked by honorable members. Just one broader question. The question centers around corruption within the correctional services centers. I thought perhaps that in the wake of this big scandal on Thabo Bester, the department will put more emphasis and premium on the issue of corruption. And I want the department to share with us what is it exactly in precision that it is going to do to ensure that it curbs corruption within the correctional centers. I'm asking this because, in my view, this Thabo Bester thing is just a tip of an iceberg. There are many incidents that are reported formally and informally about what is happening within the correctional centers, which border on corruption, that needs to be attended to, especially the connivance and collusion between the officials and prisoners. It is quite easy for prisoners to access drugs. It is quite easy for them to access weapons. We are told that even in some centers, they play gambling. Bachama say they play cards, they gamble randomly, which signifies that the problem that we have is much bigger than what is on the surface. And I thought perhaps the department would say part of our strategy going forward will be to ensure that we uproot corruption within the department itself, as well as within the different centers that we have. For me, this is a very big problem that needs to be attended to. Linked to that, it is the violence that continues to be perpetuated within the centers. These are correctional centers. The intention thereof is to rehabilitate, is to educate, is to change the behavior of prisoners. But prisoners go in there with the crimes that they have committed, sentenced, and instead of being rehabilitated, some of them are coming back worse than the way they were when they enter the prison cells. And some of them even come back sick because of the sexually transmitted diseases that are obtained. And for me, these are the real stuff. These are the real issues that are reported within our centers. And I want the department to match what is on the ground with the work that they want to do, to ensure that at the end of the day, we achieve the desired results. But linked to that, Chairperson, is the fact that in the strategy of the department, there are shortcomings that I see. There are fault lines that I think, in my respective view, have got to be attended to. A prisoner gets more benefits than the person who's outside the prison who is unemployed. And for me, that is problematic. As one of the honorable members has said, they have easy access to education, they watch television, they have access to internet facilities, they eat better meals than a person who's outside, who's poor, who's unemployed. And for me, I think these are the things that the department must look at and say, how do we strengthen our own system? How do we review them so that whilst these centers are correctional centers, but at the same time, they are prisons. We can't close our eyes of the fact that these are prisons. People who go there is because they have offended the society. They have committed crimes, and some of the crimes are really real crimes, very, very serious crimes. And for me, this requires a broader strategy to deal with. And I want to get the comment of the department in respect of this particular issue, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dodovu. And I want to agree that honorable members have covered quite a large number of issues. But perhaps I would just add one other or emphasize one other matter. This is in relation to the number of escapes that have taken place within correctional service facilities over the last financial year. How many have taken place, and what has been the lessons for the department with regard to these escapes, but also with regard to the Thabo-based escape as well. I think that being said, Deputy Minister, let me hand over to yourself. And let me also just clarify one matter, that initially, DM, the meeting was expected to start at 10, but given the program of the NCOP today, we had changed the time, and we were under the assumption that you were also aware of that fact. Be that as it may, we accept the reason why you came late. Let me then hand over to yourself, DM, to then start with the process of responding to the various questions members have raised. Some questions members have repeated, but be that as it may, I think I made a mistake of not restricting members to questions, because normally when you do, they would tend to ask the questions that were not asked. Over, DM, over to you.
Thank you very much once again, Chairperson. I was hoping that because I got disconnected after I had joined the meeting, and I requested the National Commissioner to respond to issues that I may have missed, and then I'll cover what I think he has not been able to cover.
Okay.
I don't know if that is acceptable to you, Chairperson.
It's acceptable, DM. National Commissioner, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the Select Committee for the questions. I will, Honorable Chairperson, answer some of the questions. I have indicated that on the platform we have the senior management team of the department. I will then also request through you, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, that they also answer the questions that one would request that they answer. On the issue of how the question that was asked by Honorable Dodovu on the issue of how are we going to stop corruption or collusion between officials and offenders, that leads to smuggling of contrabands and also illegal objects and substances into our correctional facilities. We are implementing security plans in each and every correctional facility. Our security plans include ensuring that we use electronic equipment that is there to do searches, but we also do physical searches. We also have a system of interacting with our own officials and offenders. And through that system, we are able to get information that we do work with law enforcement agencies to ensure that we then follow up on those that are suspected to be involved in these activities, and we get them to be arrested. And in answering this question, Honorable Chairperson, I'm also answering the question that was asked by Honorable Mutamai on the two officials of the department that were arrested by the Hawks in the Western Cape. They were arrested by the Hawks because they are a law enforcement agency that is tasked to deal with those kind of cases. We were working with the Hawks and the police throughout, and our officials were there when the arrest was effected. So we were part of that arrest. The leading agency was the Hawks in that instance. On a daily basis, we do get information and we act on it. On the side of consequence management, the employees that are found to have been involved in these activities are taken through disciplinary processes. And in saying that, I'm also answering the question that was asked by Honorable Badenhorst, when he was indicating that there is no single official that has been dismissed for escapes. There are statistics that we have. We can submit to the committee a report on the disciplinary cases that we have effected and the sanctions that came out of those. I need to indicate, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, that each and every case is treated on its merit, and we make it a point that the sanction that is required is meted. Honorable Totovu, Honorable Chairperson, also raised the issue of gambling. This issue is a bit of a difficulty to monitor. In our sports, recreation, and arts and culture work with offenders, we also allow them to, especially when they are under lockdown, we allow them to play what we call recreational games, but we do not allow them to play those recreational games with money. No offender is allowed to have money in their possession. And that's why when we search, when we find an offender with money, we take the money and we discipline that offender. Those games are meant for recreational purposes. So where we find that money is involved, we confiscate the games and we discipline those offenders, meaning that those privileges are then withdrawn. But recreational games are meant to ensure that we have an environment that is conducive for civil interaction between offenders in the correctional facilities. They assist also in ensuring that an environment of peace and stability obtains in the correctional facilities. We have an anti-corruption strategy. We are implementing that, including ensuring that we protect the whistleblowers, and that also includes offenders that come up with information specific to a specific correctional facility or management area. We make it a point that through our security plans, but also the transfer policies, we are able to transfer those offenders to centers where they will be safe if they are involved in providing information or assisting us to deal with corruption. We also have a gang combating strategy, which is at the center of ensuring that we reduce incidents of attacks between offenders and also attacks to our staff. I must indicate that yes, the attacks continue to be there, but we have succeeded over the years to reduce them. We also have a call center, which is a free line that members of the public call, and we follow up on each and every incident that is reported, and we ensure that it is attended to. We also have reports from the call center that we can provide to the select committee. In terms of the fault line, as indicated by Honorable Dodovu, we take that as an input that we will include in the processes of reviewing our strategies, as I have already indicated. Honorable Mtetwa also raised a question around the budget reduction of Program 3. And that the same question was also asked by, the same question was also asked. The department at the moment is reprioritizing within the budget. The outlook is on ensuring that the program on incarceration and the program on rehabilitation are getting an appropriate allocation from our budget. In the incarceration allocation, we also have items that are linked to the rehabilitation program. A point in case would be that in the incarceration budget, that's where our self-sufficiency and sustainability strategic framework is implemented. This is a framework that ensures that we utilize the offenders to effect cost savings, and also ensure that we increase production with regards to the rations that offenders are supposed to be apportioned on a daily basis for us to meet the dietary requirement. So we have farms, we have workshops, we are in a process of rolling out bakeries, and through that we have reduced the amount of money that the department spends buying vegetables and other consumables outside the department at higher prices. We are now, as a department, able to supply our kitchens with those products on a cost basis. And also with that, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, we are able to provide the committee with the report in terms of the savings and also the reduction of costs with regards to the rations that were expected to apportion to offenders. We have released an annual report in the previous financial year on the implementation of the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework. We are about to release the second annual report. These reports are based on the framework itself. So on an annual basis, we are able to measure the amount of savings we are able to realize. With regards to the impact of load shedding, as the question was posed by Honorable Mtetwa, it does affect the operations of the department. Hence, we have increased the speed at which we ensure that our correctional facilities have access to generators, but also that affects the budget of the department, because we have then to burn a lot of diesel. We are in engagement with the National Treasury for us to be granted an exemption from load shedding. The difficulty of that discussion is that our institutions are very big, given the fact that we also house our own members in the territory. And we consume a lot of electricity, but we are in discussions with National Treasury to see how we can cushion the impact of load shedding on the budget of the department. As it stands, we are able to ensure that all our correctional facilities do not experience any darkness during the time of load shedding. Our operations run as expected, and we have not had any security incidents reported as a result of load shedding. We work closely with the municipalities and other power providers, ESCOM, to ensure that we do not have those types of disruptions. The Honorable Mutamai asked a question about foreign nationals. On a monthly basis, we compare the flows between our correctional facilities and the Department of Home Affairs with regards to foreign nationals, those that are not supposed to be in our facilities. We ensure that they are handed over to the Department of Home Affairs. We have formed a task team that is led by the DG of the Department of Home Affairs and the National Commissioner of Correctional Services. As I've indicated, on a monthly basis, we ensure that we go through the numbers. We also have monthly reports on this activity that we can submit to the Select Committee. On the issue of overcrowding, Honorable Mutamai asked as to when are we going to apply for a remission of sentence. We have finalized an assessment of the offenders that would be eligible for that. The last activity that we are doing is to check the impact on the numbers. We are also looking at how that exercise can be integrated into the work that we do on a monthly basis of submitting to the Department of Justice for conversion of sentences to probation, also submitting to the Department of Justice through magistrate courts for the change of, for the reduction of bails that have been meted on remand detainees. So we are then going to be preparing a full package that will then go to Cabinet for the attention of the President on the remission of sentence, but that will go with all other interventions that we are implementing on dealing with overcrowding. Honorable Mutamai also asked a question about the support that we give to parolees after they've been released to the care of community corrections, and he specifically was referring to the skills that the offenders would have acquired, whether they are utilizing them as parolees. We have parolees that have successfully set up their own businesses, apart from those that are employed. Those that have set up their own businesses are actually even employing other parolees. For an example, we have a parolee by the name of Edison Binam, who is now a small farmer on cattle, sheep, and goat farming, and also has a vegetable garden. He employs other parolees, and he can be found in Khanyisa. He was Khanyisa in the northwest. He was incarcerated in Roykhond. That is just but one example, and we can provide more information to the committee in terms of this type of parolees that are exemplary even in the communities, in terms of ensuring that they display the fact that they have been rehabilitated through the programs of correctional services. Honorable Mutamai also raised the issue of corruption within our facilities. A point in case is the case of employees that he came to the office to have a meeting with me where they presented their cases. The matter has been referred to our legal services, and I am still awaiting to get a report from legal services, which will come through our human resource branch. The acting CDC for human resources on the platform, he can also add on that. The other issue that was raised by Honorable Mutamai, the fact that he has been asking to visit centers, and the National Commissioner has not approved such visits. There are visits that Honorable Mutamai has requested for, and the National Commissioner has approved such visits. The visit that the Honorable Mutamai requested was a visit to the Mangaung Correctional Facility, and at that time, the correctional facility was under the work of the law enforcement agencies. It was the time that the arrests have not yet even been effected on the case of Thabo Bester and those that assisted him to escape. And I was advised at that time that we should limit the interaction, because offenders and staff members of G4S were still being looked at by law enforcement agencies. And I need to indicate to Honorable Mutamai that such visits will continue to be approved. Where we have those instances, it will be exceptional cases, and those cases will also include the security situation in a particular correctional facility. Because when members of parliament or any other member of the public, or even offenders themselves and our staff, have to move within our correctional facilities, we have to make it a point that there is no security incident that would happen, that would affect their well-being. Basically, we have to make those security considerations before we approve such visits. Let me also indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that I am willing to engage with Honorable Mutamai or any member of the select committee or member of parliament who would want to visit correctional facilities, and we can then arrange accordingly. Honorable Bartlett asked a question about the amendment to legislation with regards to GIGS. The draft bill has been sent through cabinet. It will now be subjected to parliamentary processes. The issue of the funding of GIGS is an issue that we are discussing with National Treasury, because in terms of the amendment, the bill is proposing that the budget of GIGS should be an allocation that directly comes from National Treasury, that it should not come from the department. And this will guarantee the independence of GIGS from the department and ensure that GIGS has got the necessary resources to perform its mandate. On the issue of offender-victim dialogue, we, on a monthly basis, do have these forums that we convene. We convene them in two forms. The first form is that we convene forums where we involve members of the community, where the victim-offender dialogue happens in the presence of the community. And then also the second part is where we facilitate offender-victim dialogue between the victim and the offender in the supervision of the parole board and the professionals in correctional facilities. We have registered success with this forums, there is an element of challenges that we are facing where victims in most cases would not be ready to forgive the offender. And we take note of the issues that are raised by the victims, and we ensure that our psychologists and social workers work on the notes. And in also answering this question, there was a question asked about victims not being informed about the release of offenders. In terms of the process of considering parole by the parole board, victims are interacted with, they are invited to parole board meetings, and they are given an opportunity to make representation to the parole board. There is no offender that would be released on parole without the input of the victim being considered. There are instances where we have to actually give offenders future dates for consideration because we will be looking for victims. Some of them might have relocated because we work with the South African Police Service. They are also part of the parole board on an observer status because they give us advice on the whereabouts of the victims. They give us advice on how the victim was affected and also what consideration to make when an offender is supposed to be released on parole to be in the care of community corrections. And their advice is valuable because in most instances they advise us not to release an offender into community corrections with an address that is of the same location of the victim, because that can lead to the victim not being comfortable, or it can lead to secondary victimization when the victim gets in contact with the offender. So in terms of our standard operating procedures, we do not release offenders into community corrections without the input of the victim, unless in circumstances where we have satisfied ourselves that the victim cannot be found at all. But we also look for the families of the victims. We really go out to search, and we, as I've indicated, Honorable Chairperson, we refer offenders to a later date if we cannot make progress in time with regards to that. Honorable Ndongeni asked a question about the filling of the post of Regional Commissioner Eastern Cape. The post has been advertised, just closed. We are now dealing with the administration and also setting up a panel through the Minister and the Deputy Minister, a panel for shortlisting and interviews. With regards to the numbers of psychologists and social workers, yes, we admit, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, that the number of psychologists and social workers that we have do not match the required ratio in terms of the number of offenders that they have to attend to. We also work with the Department of Social Development to augment our capacity. We also implement a program of auxiliary social workers and auxiliary psychologists, and these ones are actually working under the supervision of fully qualified psychologists and social workers. As a department, we are required to implement a budget reduction program as directed by Treasury, as Treasury is implementing what is called the Human Resource Budget tool. We are not therefore getting an increase on our compensation of employees budget. We are actually required to reduce the number of our employees to fit the numbers that have been allocated to us by National Treasury. Now, this in itself has led to a situation where even in the process of working on our organizational structure, what we have done is to ensure that we reduce the number of positions at senior management level so that we can release resources for us to be able to create more posts at a lower level or at production level. And these are the posts that have to do with psychologists, social workers, artisans that work in the farms, artisans that work in the workshops. And the same artisans are the ones that are taking our offenders through rehabilitation programs. This is the challenge that we have raised with the National Treasury. We make submissions each and every financial year. We come out with the same answer that we are supposed to reduce the number of employees that we have as the Department of Correctional Services. So in instances where there is a backlog in a particular management area with regards to the work of psychologists and social workers, we actually form task teams and we send a group of social workers and psychologists to work on the backlog of that management area so that we can get it to manageable levels. But as I've indicated, it continues to be a challenge to the department, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. The issue of the question that was asked by also Honorable Dlamini on the monitoring of parolees when they are in the care of community corrections. We have launched a campaign of doing spot checks on parolees to ensure that our parole officers actually do their work. This has improved on the monitoring of our parolees. We still experience instances where our parolees do not comply with the conditions. In those instances, we bring them back into our correctional facilities. That adds into the overcrowding numbers. In other instances, we put them on the list of those that are absconding. And this is in the instances where a parolee will change address without informing the parole officer. And in that instance, we then ensure that our track and tracing teams go out to look for those parolees. And as I've indicated, we bring them back into our correctional facilities. There are parolees that end up reoffending, and that worries us, although it's not a huge percentage, because when they actually reoffend, they commit crimes that are more serious than the crimes that they would have been incarcerated for previously. And that's why we are working with the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation to, we have developed a proposal to implement a project of evaluating our rehabilitation and correctional program, and also evaluating the effectiveness of the parolees monitoring programs. And out of that, we hope that we will be able to get pointers to how we should improve further. I must also indicate that there are those offenders and parolees that, in as much as we take them through all our programs and we assess them, but we still find them coming back into our correctional facilities. Now, those are the kind of offenders that we give special attention to ensure that even when they have to go again before the parole board, in most instances, they don't actually succeed to get parole. They actually are, they get more and more referrals because of the record that they would have registered with our processes as a department. Another issue that was raised by Honorable Dlamini is the issue of the victims of crime. that we give rehabilitation programs, opportunities for skills development and education to offenders, but the victims of crime are not given attention. The minister and the deputy minister did conscientize the department to ensure that there are specific programs that we have with the victims of crime. For the past 2 financial years, we have been doing that. These programs range from improving the living conditions of victims of crime, providing them with skills, and these skills are in the main on the farming side of the work that we do, establishing gardens, ensuring that they are able to do stock farming. Where we have opportunities of employment opportunities that are created within the space of correctional services, we ensure that we interact with victims and we expose them to that. Skills development programs that we do with CETAs, we also ensure that we enroll victims or families, members of the victims in those programs. This we are doing. I must admit, Honorable Chairperson, that it is on a small scale, given the budget that we have as the department, and also the fact that we work with other partner departments like the departments of social development. This is the department that directly sits with the mandate of assisting with regards to victims of crime. We work with the department closely in ensuring that we provide services to the victims. We aim to upscale this program, and it is an integral part of our annual performance plan in the branch of community corrections. The issue of the escapes and informing the public and the victims in terms of our protocol and procedure, immediately when we have ascertained that there has been an escape from a correctional facility, we inform the victim or members of the family of the victim. We inform the family of the offender that has escaped. We issue out a media alert that we will do actually after the first step, which is to report an escape with the South African Police Service because it is a crime. And then we work with law enforcement agencies to do tracking and tracing of the offender that would have escaped. Now, in the case of Thabo Bester, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, the Thabo Bester was under the care of Mangaung Correctional Services, which is a correctional facility that is managed under a public-private partnership contract. The report that we received in May, on the 3rd of May 2022, was that there was an incident of the burning of a cell and an offender burnt in that cell. That is the report that we received. That is the alert and the report that we sent to the South African Police Service through our controller, who is the supervisor or liaison between the contractor and the department based in Mangaung Correctional Facility. The case that was opened with the police was a case of assault and the case of unnatural death. It was a case of unnatural death. It is then through the investigations by SAPS and information that came through, especially the post-mortem results and the post-mortem results, that there started to be indications that the body in cell 35 that burned that morning of the 3rd of May 2002 might be the body of someone else, not Thabo Bester. We only received the post-mortem results as the department in the month of October. 2022. We, after reporting the case in May 2022, instituted an investigation. The investigation report was tabled before the Portfolio Committee of Correctional Services. The same report we can submit to the Select Committee. It details each and every aspect of the investigation. Without going into details, Honorable Chairperson, I must indicate that we face challenges in conducting this investigation. Our investigators were not getting cooperation from the contractor. They were also not getting information readily available from the police, because the police indicated that the investigation involved a lot of other criminal activities, and they would want to provide information to the department when they are satisfied that provision of that information is not going to jeopardize the investigation into other criminal activity. Hence, we received the post-mortem report in the month of October. The draft report from our investigators was submitted to the department in November 2022. It was submitted to the director, contract management, who is the one that was supposed to finalize the report and submit it to the National Commission. The report was not finalized until in March 2023, after the National Commissioner actually gave the director an ultimatum. And based on the final report, that now was very clear that there was an escape in May 3, 2022, and the body that was found in cell 35 is not the body of Thabo Bester. It is on the strength of that report that the National Commissioner was then able to announce that there was an escape. The families of the victims were then informed, and a track and tracing team was set up, and the work was then done to the point where, as I've indicated, with the law enforcement agencies, the work was done up to the point where now we have Thabo Bester rearrested and is in our custody. The limitation that I have pointed to is that the contractor maintains, even after we appeared before the portfolio committee, that Thabo Bester has not escaped. He died in cell 35. And that made it difficult for the department to go out and pronounce a different conclusion until such time that as a National Commissioner, I received the final report from the Director Contract Management. The Director Contract Management is on suspension. We have finalized an investigation into her conduct with regards to delaying finalizing the report, and she will be going through disciplinary processes. We have also suspended the controller and the deputy controller. We've contemplated to suspend the controller and the deputy controller in Mangaung. We have appointed a temporary manager, and basically, in terms of the contract, removed the director from G4S that was managing the institution. We have appointed a temporary manager from DCS. We have had multiple teams going into Mangaung now because we have access from the side of security, IT, human resources, and operations to ensure that the incident that took place, the incident of the escape of Thabo Bester, does not repeat itself. In addition to that, we have issued out a notice of termination of contract to the contractor based on the legal advice that we have received, and the notice is running for 90 days in terms of the contract. Already we have teams that are preparing for the takeover from the 1st of August 2023. The teams were already existing because as the department, we did pronounce in the year 2021 that we are not going to renew the contract of the Triple P contracts in Mangaung and also in Kutamasin-Tumule. So from that pronouncement, we set up teams to start working to prepare us to take over Kutamasin-Tumule in 2027 and to also prepare us to take over Mangaung in 2026. Now, the team is fast-tracking the takeover of Mangaung as one has indicated on the 1st of August 2023. There was a question asked by Honorable Maleka on the remand detainees. I've also answered the question that was asked by Honorable Maleka on the challenges we faced, the relationship we had with the G4S. Basically, there was non-cooperation with regards to the investigation. There was a question that was asked on remand detainees. I'm going to request Honorable Chairperson that we give the Chief Deputy Commissioner responsible for remand detention, Ms. Ramulifu, to answer that question. There was a question that was asked on equity targets. I'm going to request that the CDC strategic management answer the question. There was a question that was asked on our relationship with the Department of Public Works. We have on the platform the Acting Deputy Commissioner for Facilities. I'm going to request him to answer that question. There was a question asked by Honorable Badenhorst about the engagements we are having with CPFs on parolees in the Western Cape. I have been informed by the Regional Commissioner that there are engagements that are ongoing. I can request specifics from the Regional Commissioner. He's also logged on with us in the meeting. He can give the specifics with regards to that. On the issue of the overcrowding, the bed space and the percentage of overcrowding, the question was asked by Honorable Bartlett, and why did we increase the indicator on overcrowding. I'm also going to ask the Chief Deputy Commissioner Strategic Management to respond to that question. Honorable Chairperson, I will pause here. My apologies for taking quite some time. Thank you for your indulgence, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members.
National Commissioner, please continue your process with your colleagues. We're not going to come in to recognize them. They must just carry on.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. We'll start with the Deputy Commissioner Strategic Management.
And National Commissioner, there's also a question on the chat. If you could please indulge that number as well.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members, and Commissioner, Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, and colleagues. I think the one that I will address was the issue on the overcrowding indicator and why it has increased and the issues around it. If there is a detailed explanation which is provided in the supplementary presentation. I think it runs from slides 3 to 31 of that presentation, which would give the full extent of the detail. But I think what, in terms of absolute numbers over the period of the financial year, we have experienced an increase of sentenced and unsentenced offenders in excess of, if we look at it from about 144,000, we're sitting on about 155,000 currently. So we are 46% overcrowded as at the end of the 2022-23 financial year. If we look at it in terms of the judgment that was emanating from the Western Cape with regards to our levels of overcrowding, there was an indication that we should, across all correctional services facilities, ensure that we are not overcrowded in excess of 150%. So in keeping with the judgment, we are ensuring through our overcrowding reduction or overcrowding management strategy that we do not exceed that. And that is why our target has been set or has been moved from 32% to 150%. But I think, as the DM also raised in his opening remarks, which also talks to the management of remand detainees, which my colleague will come in on now, is that one of the areas is to manage the inflow of those who really should not be in correctional facilities, but would rather best be served in terms of being outside of incarceration and serving whatever. Chairperson, may I continue?
Yeah, please continue. I don't know who's making a noise in the background. Can I just request everybody else that is not on the platform to please mute their mics? Please continue.
I think, Chairperson, let me stop at that. I think that was the substantive one that I needed to come onto. But I think maybe leading on from that, the Chief Deputy Commissioner for Remand Detention might want to come in and add more context to that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson, Deputy Minister, through the National Commissioner. Good day, my name is Cynthia Ramlipo, Chief Deputy Commissioner, Remand Detention. I just want to respond on the total number of foreign nationals for the month of March. We were sitting at 7,738. I'm supporting the response by the National Commissioner that there is a project with Home Affairs on the management of foreign nations. So I just wanted to indicate the figure as at the 1st March for the RD. Further to support what was already said, but additional to the statistics and the figures on the measures that the department is doing with regards to alternatives for the reduction of overcrowding. To put a context, the whole financial year, court referrals from all the correctional centers, we were sitting at only just the referrals of RDs, 12,283. And the court outcomes as at the 31st of March, only 154 RDs bails were reviewed. We are utilizing the Criminal Procedures Act, Section 63A and Section 61, and Section 61 together read with the 49G. That is the measure in terms of the law that we are utilizing on the review of bails together with 62F. So there are processes that we are in place. And I can just add that the National Commissioner is also leading the project on also intervening on the issues of outcomes of the court on the bail reviews. He has already mentioned two of some of the things that we have already done. Thank you, Chairperson.
National Commissioner, who's responding next?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. There was also a question on the escapes. In the previous financial year, the number of escapes we experienced was 27. In this financial year, we have had 6. But these are numbers that show a decrease from the past 3 years, where we had escapes above the number 80. We are down managing escapes because of the strategies that we are implementing. But also in tandem with that, we also have a program, as I indicated, of tracing those who have escaped. And again, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to indicate that we have figures that show that more than 80% of the escapees, we have been able to rearrest them and bring them back into our custody. Honorable Chairperson, there was a question asked by Honorable Bartlett on the issue of CPF in the Western Cape and our cooperation or engagement with them. The Regional Commissioner for Western Cape, Mr. Deleki Detlas, will then proceed to give a bit of detail with regards to those engagements.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Through you, Commissioner. As the Western Cape region, we are working very closely with CPF on a number of fronts. Firstly, we provide CPFs and station commissioners with a list of parolees, and we are working very closely with them in terms of the monitoring of parolees. Secondly, in instances where we have had escapes in the past, we managed to arrest most of those escapees within 72 hours, partly because of the assistance of CPS. Thirdly, our area commissioners, parole board chairpersons, heads of centers attend CPS meetings in their localities. We are working very closely with CPS in stakeholder management, in Imbizos, where we interact with the communities and answer community concerns on issues of parole and related matters. So I can say our relationship with CPS is a healthy relationship. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On the issue of the presidential pardon, that is a matter that is handled by the Department of Justice. It's part of the mandate of the Department of Justice. What we do as the Department of Correctional Services is to prepare a motivation for remission of sentence. And that still has to go through cabinet and be approved by the president. But that is then presented by the Minister of Correctional Services. The last person to provide answers, Honorable Chairperson, is Acting Deputy Commissioner Ariane Buosa. He's the one who's dealing with facilities and issues that relate to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Dr. Buosa?
Thank you, National Commissioner. Thank you for the opportunity, and also a good morning to the Honourable Chair, Honourable Select Committee members, and also a special welcome and greeting to my Deputy Minister as well. Commissioner and Chairperson, there was a couple of questions regarding facilities. I think one of the questions was raised, what is the approved bed spaces? So the currently approved bed spaces for this current financial year is 107,582. So that is the approved bed spaces for this financial year. Then, Honourable Chair, in terms of our relationship with the Department of Public Works, and there was also a question raised regarding did we escalate some of these challenges with Public Works to executive, and the other question also relate to facilities, which is currently at 0% capacity. So I'll try to answer those two questions. Honourable Chair, in terms of our engagement with Public Works, we're in a process to revise our SLA with Department of Public Works, and we're looking at the implementation of a tripartite SLA between Public Works and other implementing agents, just to diversify our procurement strategy in terms of our in-facilities upgrade and construction. But Chair, I think what's also worth noting is that on the 11th of February 2022, we had a bilateral discussion with the Minister of Public Works and our executive from Correctional Services and Justice as well, and various resolutions has been adopted there. So from our side, we did implement the action plan, and that action plan is currently in execution, where various decisions was taken, for example, how to fast track the construction and design of new correctional centers. There was a lot of emphasis on maintenance, for example, so that is also one of the resolutions that was taken, but we can provide that as well if needed. Then, Chair, in terms of correctional centers that's currently at 0% capacity, I think it's a combination of factors. We have various correctional centers that's currently partially occupied, that we're busy rolling out maintenance and refurbishment projects. For example, if you look at Gauteng, we have one correctional center, which is Mtonjeni Youth Center, that's currently partially occupied, and we have a contractor on site, and we anticipate that we're going to finalize that correctional center this financial year. At Parys, it's also one of our correctional centers that's not occupied at this stage. It's also under construction, and it's dealt with the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Then also in KZN, we have Umzimkhulu that's partially occupied. But when we look at the Western Cape, for example, we have two correctional centers that's at 0% capacity. The first one is Brandvlei Maximum, and we have refurbished the first phase of that project, and we're busy implementing the second phase to completely refurbish Brandvlei Correctional Center. And that project has been allocated to the Independent Development Trust. The other correctional center in the Western Cape that's occupied is Swellendam. It's an outmoded first-generation correctional center, and it's beyond economical repair. So at this stage, we're looking at to repurpose that facility, but it will not be conducive to be refurbished back to correctional center. Then, Honourable Chair, also in the LMN region, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest. In Northwest, we have one correctional center, Brits, that's currently under construction and refurbishment. It's also on our program for this financial year that we're going to finalize that project. So Brits is partially occupied. Then the other correctional center is Geluk, that is the same scenario as Swellendam. It's beyond economical repair, and we're also looking at the opportunity to repurpose that facility, but it will not be able to be refurbished to the former glory to be a correctional center. Chairperson, the Commissioner also mentioned already in terms of load shedding and backup generators. I think what's worth noting is that we participate in a program with the National Treasury, the GTEC Government Technical Advisory Committee and Public Works, that we've entered into an agreement to implement what they call integrated renewable energy and resource efficiency program. So that process or that program is also in the design stages, and we're working closely with those two entities. Chairperson, I think at this stage I'm going to pause here and I submit. Thank you for the opportunity.
National Commissioner, is that the last input?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson.
Can I just check with you whether the issue in relation to the employment equity target, was that addressed by your team? I might have missed it.
No. I see now, Honorable Chairperson, it was not addressed. Actually, I indicated that the Chief Deputy Commissioner Strategic Management would talk to that. But we also have the Acting Chief Deputy Commissioner Human Resource on the platform, Mr. Mtombeni. He can briefly address that question.
National Commissioner, I don't know if your people... DM. Deputy Minister?
I don't know. Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Well, I requested earlier on to make comments regarding the questions asked, but in my view, the National Commissioner and his team have covered everything even better than I would have expressed myself. However, I just want to comment on the question of the foreigners that are not being released. Ideally, foreigners, people who are getting into the country illegally, are supposed to be taken as soon as they are discovered by Home Affairs back to their countries of origin or beyond the borders. However, some of them get into our centers because of them having committed crimes. And as a result of necessity, they must be subjected to the court processes until they get into our centers. And there are so many of them that I've discovered who are in our centers, who should in reality have long been released. However, when we release them, we don't just want to release them knowing that they are illegal in the country out into the streets, but have to hand them over to Home Affairs. Now, it seems as if Home Affairs is quite busy with this of its responsibilities. But now that in addition to the interaction that has been taking place between the National Commissioner and his counterpart at Home Affairs, we're looking at the possibility of a meeting between the two political heads of the department so that we can find a way of expediting the release and deportation of these illegal foreigners in our correctional centers. Too many of them are complaining, but there's always a risk that you might release them only to find them they didn't leave the country or they just got back to South Africa as soon as they have the opportunity to do so. But work is being done to ensure that we lessen overcrowding by looking at soft targets such as those. Also, the question of bail generally, we rely on the cooperation of especially the Department of Justice and, or rather the courts, in ensuring that those who remain incarcerated as remand detainees, who are not able to pay even the smallest of amount required to pay bail, we find a way of releasing them, because in essence, the very fact that they are given low amounts of bail is because they don't pose that much of danger to society. The importance of community participation and understanding of the parole system and how it works cannot be overemphasized, Chairperson and honorable members. It's important that before and during their release, after they've been released, there must be interaction between the communities. In the rural areas, especially the traditional leaders and their forums, where community members get to participate in the discussion of matters affecting their lives, are crucial for the department to ensure that they understand why people who have been sentenced for a certain period are released before time. They don't understand, a number of them. So it's important, therefore, that there's that kind of interaction with traditional leaders and other community member leaders, so that the community is on board. When you say corrections is a societal responsibility. Even social integration is community responsibility. We mean it by ensuring that communities are involved. They must not suddenly see offenders roaming around their villages and streets without having been advised that this particular individual has now been found by the state to be in a position to be released, because they might have other perspectives regarding that particular individual, insofar as whether or not they don't pose any danger anymore. So VOTs and those forums that are meant to involve the community are very, very much important insofar as this matter is concerned. Now, there's lastly one question, because I don't want to repeat what has been said before. The question of concern raised by Honorable Dodovu, that offenders seem to be living a better life than law-abiding citizens. I think it has to be admitted that indeed a number of these people, in fact, the system in terms of which they are incarcerated gives justice to this concern, because when they are sick, they are immediately given medical attention. When they never go hungry because they are given 3 meals a day. Chairperson, I even learned when I joined this department that in terms of the Mandela rules and other rules, they are supposed to have 7 colors in their meal, especially lunch, I think, something that is a luxury to other people. They get educated, they get skills, and all those kinds of things. Now, we have to either see what else can be done about this, or educate the public of the necessity for these kinds of benefits to be extended to these people, because they have wronged society, because they had a different perspective on how they should deal with their challenges in life. And they are given over to the Department of Correctional Services to make sure that they are rehabilitated and that they should not lose their sense of worth as human beings. The Bill of Rights and other laws call on the Department of Correctional Services not to forget that these people are human beings, and that therefore we must not give up on them. Society must also not give up to them. What we might want to consider is beyond subjecting them to the criminal system of justice administration. What is it that can be done for the victims of crime? We don't have a really satisfactory system. All I know is that in terms of our own traditional system of governance, we don't differentiate between criminality and what you call intellectual liability in terms of what has been done by a person who have wronged others. We make sure within the same system, the same trial, that the compensation is accepted against the person who has committed a crime. If you have stolen somebody's stuff, the person is not just punished for the crime they have committed, but is also called upon to compensate the victim. Now, in the current system, the dominant system, you find that if you want to get compensated for your loss in terms of what is called damages, you have to engage the services of lawyers in order to ensure that you get back what was taken away from you, be it in the form of damages for assault or for loss of support and those kinds of things. So our responsibility, therefore, might appear, what we do as our responsibility might appear as if we are responsible for failure by the state, if you like, to give a solace of some kind beyond the knowledge that this person has been taken out of society to victims of society, to victims of crime. So responsibility, and maybe more effort must be done to ensure that other departments like social development and others are brought in to ensure that the people that have suffered are get more than they are getting in terms of their sense of justice. Thank you very much, Chairperson. We are always grateful and very much appreciative of the guidance that were given by Parliament through the Select Committee and also, of course, the Portfolio Committee on Justice, because we sometimes we are blinded by what we need to do, forgetting that there are certain things that are seen as unintended consequences of the policies that we have to apply.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, and the entire team for this engagement and for your responses to issues that members raised. I know given the way we are structured in the NCOP, it's not often that we get an opportunity to engage with correction services at this kind of level. But I think we're also grateful for the update you've given us in respect of the terrible best escape, as well as the general challenges that are experienced by the department. I think there are some reports which the National Commissioner has raised throughout his responses, which we will follow up with your office, National Commissioner, to provide us with some of the reports. If I may just name a few: the report on disciplinary cases, the call line report, the parolees program, update on the facilities, the correctional service facilities, etc. We will follow you up on that. And I think that the matter that perhaps you could not get someone to respond to with regard to the employment equity target for people with disabilities, I think you can also provide us with that matter in writing. As you're aware, Deputy Minister, this engagement with yourselves will culminate in a policy debate within the National Council of Provinces, which is actually taking place on Thursday. But let me encourage yourselves, despite some of your budgetary issues, that you continue to ensure the safety, rehabilitation, and care of inmates, as well as the overall health of the Department of Correctional Services officials. And obviously, if the jigsaw gets into the system and comes to us, we hope it reaches us sooner, so that we can process it as a house as well. I think that being said, thank you very much, DM and your team. We've come to the end of that engagement, but before I close, honourable members, I think with regard to the policy debate on Thursday, we have adopted a report in relation to justice and constitutional development. However, in relation to correctional services, we will adopt a report post a debate. And in terms of the rules of Parliament, I think the relevant minister would also within 6 months be required to respond to the recommendations of the committee. That being said, thank you very much, honourable members, as well, for your attendance and participation. I think we've come to the end of this meeting. I'm sure members who are debating today would be relieved that they can be released from this meeting. But thank you very much. Thanks, DM and team.
Thank you, Chairperson, honourable members.
Thank you, Chair.